some stories from the field. So from real farmers who've been through some kind of trauma, and we're going to hear about their recovery. This work was done by Dr. Beth Ruiz, who was part of this project, went out and interviewed farmers and gathered their stories. And we're going to share 4 of those stories with you today. The names in the stories have been changed to protect the identities of the actual farmers involved. And obviously those of us who are narrating the stories, this is not our personal story. So just want to make that clear. Part of the reason why we wanted to share this with you today is it can be really hard to sort of visualize how somebody with a disability could still be farming. Because as we know, farming is a very physical, a very mental occupation. And when we think of people who've been through some pretty severe traumatic experiences, it can seem like that is really incompatible with continuing a career in agriculture. So part of what we wanted to talk about today is to share some stories from some real farmers who have been through some things and are continuing to work in that. So I'm actually going to start with the first one. So meet Tommy, who was a 37-year-old farmer who had a farm tractor accident. While on a hay tractor in 2018, Tommy fell, hitting his head, and suffered a traumatic brain injury. He was not wearing head protection, as many of us don't. This is what he stated is, it's not stylish and often uncomfortable, and I'm guilty for not wearing head protection on my tractor too. Tommy was transported by air ambulance to the hospital where he underwent a 12-hour surgery on his head. He was moved to a rehab hospital following his surgery to begin his rehabilitation. He stayed there working with a trauma rehab team for 9 months. His trauma rehabilitation team included a speech pathologist, a neuropsychologist, a psychologist, a physiotherapist, an occupational therapist, and a dietitian. After his release, he continued therapy outpatient for several months, but being home around the farm and nature made it much easier for him. Today, 5 years later, he is still in rehab, but he's also back to farming full-time. It's taken some mental, emotional, physical, and environmental adjustments. For example, he still sees a therapist to help him deal with his emotions and the sadness that he sometimes feels. He had to purchase new tools and make adjustments to some of the farm utility tractors to be able to use them safely. He no longer does it alone, and he's established a buddy system. He wears head protection, and he's much more mindful of his surroundings. This quote, "Be patient with yourself. Don't be afraid to make life adjustments and share your story. Telling your story about your accident, injury, condition, listening to others within the farming community, sharing with family, friends, and other farmers is one of the biggest parts of healing. It will help you reflect on and process the injury or condition and connects you with those around you while also educating them on our reality, everyday challenges, access needs, and successes. And finally, deal with the emotional stuff professionally. Get help. We often cannot do it alone, and avoid alcohol and drugs for as long as you can following your accident or injury. It doesn't make it better or make it go away. And finally, enjoy the new you."
This is a story of farmer number 2. The voice on the phone saved my life. I was in a dark place. I'd lost everything that growing season. I had no financial recovery plan for the losses and no health insurance. I still tried to talk to the doctors and others, but they didn't get it. It was getting expensive to pay out of pocket, so I really simply decided to stop trying. It was all probably just in my head. This led me to build walls around me, cut off everyone and to slack off from my farm duties, caring for the animals, tending the crops, and even myself. I wanted to be left alone. I did not need anyone to feel as bad as I did. They also didn't get it. When I needed help the most, there was no one there, no one to help me. I looked healthy on the outside, but no one saw my inner struggles. The shame of my limitations and self-disappointment, coupled with the physical pain, was paralyzing. I did not want to hurt myself, but the walls were closing in so quickly. I called the crisis line and I spoke to a total stranger. The person that answered said 3 magic words. What's going on? And it turns out I just needed someone to listen to me without passing judgment, looking at me with disbelief, or questioning my abilities. The stranger that day saved my life. I am grateful to them. Thank you. Today, I implore others not to be down on the farm alone. You are not alone. You just need to know when and who to call in times like this. I'm also gonna do this reading in Spanish as the wish of this particular farmer. La voz en el teléfono salvó mi vida. Estaba en un lugar oscuro. Había perdido toda la cosecha. No tenía un plan de recuperación financiera ni seguro médico. Traté de hablar con mis médicos y otras personas, pero no conseguí nada. Todo se estaba volviendo costoso para pagar desde mi bolsillo, así que decidí dejar de intentarlo. Probablemente todo estaba en mi cabeza. Esto me llevó a construir muros a mi alrededor, a aislarme de todos y dejar de lado mis deberes agrícolas, como cuidar los animales y los cultivos, así como cuidarme a mí mismo. Creía que me dejaran en paz y no necesitaba que nadie se sintiera tan mal como yo. Tampoco lo conseguí. Cuando más necesitaba ayuda, no había nadie que me pudiera ayudar. Parecía saludable por fuera, pero nadie veía las luchas que tenía internamente. La vergüenza de mis limitaciones y la autodecepción, junto con el dolor físico, me paralizaban. No quería lastimarme, pero las paredes se estaban cerrando rapidísimo. Llamé a la línea de crisis y hablé con un total extraño. La persona respondió con 3 palabras mágicas. ¿Qué está pasando? Y resultó que solo necesitaba que alguien me escuchara sin juzgarme, sin mirarme con incredulidad o cuestionar mis habilidades. Ese extraño ese día me salvó la vida. Le estoy agradecido. Gracias. Hoy imploro que otros o otras que no estén solos o solas en la granja. No están solos, solas, solas. Necesitan saber cuándo y a quién llamar en un momento como este.
Farmer number 3, my recent drive home. Until recently, no one, except myself, knew that I'd been suffering from severe depression and anxiety for 30 years. It was a late, cold, and rainy fall night. I had just finished dinner and I drove a long way home, but I didn't fully understand why I went this way because it added 30 minutes to my already long drive home from a friend's house. As I crossed the bridge, I noticed oncoming traffic lanes were closed, with a lot of police cars blocking the road. As I got closer to the scene, I began to see what was going on. A young girl was sitting on the side wall of the bridge with her head between her knees and appeared to be in distress. The police were keeping their distance, but were clearly trying to talk her and help. This appeared to be a situation where she was threatening to jump. An overwhelming feeling of wanting to get out of my car and talk to her came over me. I wanted to tell her what I had been through, and that it isn't worth what she was about to do, knowing full well the police would never allow that. I just kept driving. I thought to myself, I thought about her and about the many others who are out there that suffer from mental health problems like myself. How could I help? How could I help myself? It all started back in high school. I have triggers just like anyone else that suffers from this illness. The first thoughts of suicide came back when I was young. I had a plan, set out to complete that plan, but something occurred during the execution of my plan that spooked me, so I went back home. I was then good for a few more years until I got to college and experienced my trigger once again. But this time I did execute my plan. But obviously that plan failed, otherwise I wouldn't be sharing this today. Today I'm a believer in things that happen for a reason. It is my belief that God allows situations to test us, to guide us towards something, and to help us figure out our place and our purpose. Fast forward some years, I married the love of my life. We have 3 wonderful daughters together and a beautiful hobby farm. Life is great. That is until the love of my life tells me she wanted a divorce. This spun me right back into those thoughts and feelings. This time, even worse. I created another plan and set out to execute that plan. This time telling myself, this is it. I'm done. This is the last time. When I arrived at that place, I picked to execute my plan. There were people all around. No idea why. So I had to keep moving. As I did, I couldn't get my daughters out of my head. I decided enough was enough. I told myself I didn't want to feel this way anymore. I went to the hospital and asked for help. From that moment on, I've been telling all my family and my friends of my story, all of it. My farm is my healing space. I find working with the land and nature very therapeutic. In addition, I see a therapist regularly and attend various support groups. Farmers experience a lot of hardships. They come in many ways. Some are financial, some are physical, yet others are invisible and emotional, but none of these should be ignored. Reach out to someone. You have a greater purpose in life.